Red Hat Package Management. In this nugget, we're going to look at managing software in Red Hat Linux with the Red Hat Package Manager, RPM. We'll also spend a few minutes looking at the Red Hat Network, which is a tool to help you keep the software on your system up to date. So let's get to work. Let's start by talking about the Red Hat Package Manager in some general terms. This is known as RPM. This is also the extension of the file names that you're going to download off the internet. Everything's going to end in .rpm. Okay, so what does the Red Hat Package Manager do? Well, it helps you keep track of, install, uninstall, and update software packages on your system. So it's helping you with the organizational aspects of software management. So when you go to update some piece of software, you might want to know, well, what version of the software do I have right now? What version? Then you can look on the internet to see what new versions are out there. Maybe you're going to install some piece of software and it says it requires this other piece of software in order for it to work. So you can go out and make sure you have that supporting software on your system, you have the correct version of that supporting software, and so on. You can do all of that with RPM in a very simple and efficient fashion. Now, these RPM files that we download off the internet, the files that end in .rpm, those files are really packages of software, okay? They're either binary packages, like they've already been compiled to run on a particular architecture, or they're source code that you're going to compile yourself. Now, the binaries are going to come in different versions because of the different architectures out there. Like if the version of the file is like i386, that's for like an Intel 386 machine or higher. So that's sort of the most generic version of the binaries. Some of them might be for Athlon processors, for the AMD processors, that sort of thing. Okay. Now, our interface for our RPM is either going to be a command line interface, which I'm going to show you, and also a GUI. But the GUI is limited in scope, and we'll use the GUI, and you'll see how it is limited. It has its uses, but like I said, you can do everything with RPM through the command line interface. So we're going to make sure that we understand the command line interface well, and you can see what the GUI does. And if you want to use it in certain circumstances where it works, then you should feel free to use that. Okay, now let's talk about some of the options for the RPM command, the command line RPM command. There's 5 basic categories of options. There's -i for install, so if you're installing a software package from scratch, you would use the lowercase I. -e for erasing or removing a particular package from your system. When you erase a package from your system, you get rid of all the configuration files and so on. Then there's U for upgrade. Now, what upgrade does basically is it erases the old version and installs the new version. But the way that it's different from just erasing the old, using -e to erase the old version and using -i to install the new version, is that it will keep all the configuration files from the old version, so that if you modify the configuration files to be customized for your particular installation, well, then if you use the U option to upgrade the software, all those configuration files will stay in place. So that's how it's different from just erasing and installing. Okay, there's the -q option for querying, so you can ask questions about particular software packages, what version, and so on, and we'll look at some extra options for querying in a minute. And then V is to verify a particular software package against what's in the database. Okay, so let's look at some extra options. For the -i command, for the install command, you've got these extra options that you can include with that. -- exclude docs says that you do not want to include any documentation with the installation. The only reason you'd probably do this is just to save on disk space. -- replace packages says to reinstall this software and sort of replace the one that's already there. So maybe you started an installation, you did some configuration, but you messed some things up in sort of a way that you couldn't revert the changes, you're not sure how to go back. So if you want to, you can just start fresh and just do a -i with the replace packages, and then you'll just have a fresh start with a brand new installation. -- force says just ignore any of these warning messages that you're getting. Perhaps you're doing an installation and you get some warning message and it doesn't proceed. So you can use the -- force option to just ignore those warning messages and go on. Now, this doesn't mean that it's going to work, that the installation is actually going to be successful at the end, but it's just going to ignore all the warning messages. Minus no script says do not run any pre or post installation scripts, and minus no dep says ignore dependency information. So if it says, oh well, I need this particular library to function, you can use minus no deps to say, well, don't worry about those dependencies. Again, this might not work because it actually does need that particular library to function, but if you have some sort of inside knowledge of why it's not recognizing that particular library or something like that, you can use minus no deps to get around that. For capital U, for the upgrade option, you can use all of these things above, and you can also use this option called minus old package. So in some sense, this is like a downgrade option. So if you're upgrading from, say, version 3.2 to 3.1, you would have to use the minus old package to say I'm actually taking a step back in sort of the process of upgrading the software. I'm going back to a version maybe because the new version isn't working in some particular situation, so I just want to sort of downgrade back to this old version that I knew did work. Okay, and then finally options for query. Okay, one of them is minus what provides X. So there you're finding out what the package to which this file X belongs. And then sort of the inverse of that is what requires X. So for a particular file X, you can see what packages require that file. Then there's the lowercase I, and this is not for install. Okay, this is being used with query, and so if you do like minus QI, you'll get information about a particular package. So you'll say RPM minus QI Apache or something like that, and it would give you the information about the Apache package. Okay, lowercase l, I've written it in script here so you didn't think it's like the number 1 or something, and that's just to list all the files in a particular package. Minus script shows you the contents of the scripts that are associated with the package, like the pre-installation and the post-installation scripts. Okay, so now we'll just move out to the Linux screen and look at some of these commands firsthand. Okay, so now let's actually do an installation of an RPM file off the internet. And so what I'm going to do first is go out onto the internet and go and get this file that I want to install. So the place that I'm going to go to is www.webmin.com. And Webmin is like a web-based system administration tool. Okay, and here's the web page for it. We'll talk about how to use Webmin in a future nugget, but for right now all I want to do is actually go ahead and do an installation of Webmin. I've already checked to make sure that my operating system is supported and so on, so I just want to go right to the download and install page and do the installation. Scroll down here a little bit, and we can see there is a few versions or few various formats that we can install from. We can either grab a tar file, a gzip tar file. We can grab an RPM file that's suitable for Red Hat, Caldera, so on. And notice here it says no arch. This means it's not architecture dependent. It's not like it has to run on an Intel 586 processor or something like that. Okay. Then there's a source RPM file that we can grab that we would then have to compile the source code so that we would have an executable that we could run. There's also a Solaris package format, and then there's this minimal version of Webmin, and you can see that minimal version is 902 kilobytes versus somewhere around 6,500 to 7,500 kilobytes for these other packages. So I'm going to choose this RPM file since we're studying RPM in this nugget, and we'll install this particular RPM file onto our system. Okay, so I'm going to click on this, and now I'm going to go and have a selection of mirror sites that I can pick from. Let's see one that's close here. Minneapolis, Minnesota, I guess, is the closest one. I'm going to download that. It's going to prompt me for a place to download it to. Here we go. Save this file to disk, and I'm going to say OK, and then it's going to prompt me where do I want it. I'm going to put it in the /temp directory, and I'm just going to save it there. Okay, and now it's all done. It only took a few seconds. I'm going to say close. Okay, and now let's go back to the Linux screen here. Let me close this web browser window, or at least minimize it. Let's go back here. I'm going to become a super user so that I can actually do the installation. And then I'm going to go up to the temp directory. Do an ls there, and you'll see here's our Webmin 1.11 tool. Okay, let's clear the screen. Let's do an RPM -I. Okay, we're going to do an installation of this file, and remember, -I is for install. There's other options I can put on -I. I like to put V and H on there as well. And V and H are options that you can put on -I, -E for erase, -U for update. And all V and H does is V makes the output verbose, so it tells you sort of what's going on, and H prints hash marks to the screen as the installation is progressing. It also puts a little percentage of how much is already done. And this is nice if you're installing some gigantic package, then you just know how long, how far along it's already gone. Okay, so I'm going to do that, then I'm going to type web, hit the tab complete to complete the file name here because I didn't want to type all that. And now I'm going to install the Webmin 1.11 version of the RPM file on my system. So I'm going to hit enter here, and now it says preparing. So it's preparing the installation. That's 100% done. And now it's actually doing the Webmin installation for Red Hat Linux 8.0. And you can see over here it's progressing. The hash marks are printing across the screen. And so this is progressing nicely. We're almost done there. And there, now we're 100% done. And now some sort of message should come up about what Webmin is or how to execute it or something about, read this file about Webmin, whatever. Okay, hopefully I won't eat my words here. And this message should pop up any second. Maybe I should just pause the video. Oh, good. I'm great. I didn't pause the video. As soon as I paused it, it would have come up anyway. So, okay, so here it is. You can now log into http://nugget:10,000. Okay, this will run the Webmin program inside of a web browser. Then it says log in as root with your root password to that interface on the web browser, and you'll have Webmin. Okay, so let's go back to our web browser here, and let's type in http://nugget: 2Gs:1T:10,000. Okay, now log in as the root user, it said, okay, with the root password. There we go. And I'm not going to check remember login permanently. I don't like to save passwords and stuff in web browsers. That's not very secure, especially for something like a system administration tool. So here I am. Okay, now you can see all these various buttons up here. You can see there's a configuration. I can set up user accounts on Webmin. I can configure Webmin. It's got a logging capability, so I can look at logs of actions that were done with Webmin. I'm not going to get into exactly how to use Webmin in detail in this nugget. Like I said, we'll talk about that in some future nugget. I just wanted to show you how to do an installation using the RPM command. And we've successfully installed it, and now we're running Webmin. Alright, well now that we've installed Webmin, let's look at the RPM command with the -Q option to query it. And the way that we query a particular package that we've installed is we just query it by the name of the package. In this case, it's called Webmin. Okay, we don't have to give that big long RPM file name like we did before when we installed it, because there we were specifying the .rpm file that we wanted to install the software from. Okay, so the most basic version of the query command is it just gives you the version of the piece of software, Webmin 1.110-1, which just means release 1. Okay, so then if we go Q with the I option, remember I after a Q means to add more information to the query. Again, we'll say Webmin, and now we get a whole bunch of stuff. We get stuff about the author, the name, the version, the release, the dates, the size of the thing, and a summary. A web-based administration interface for Unix systems. Using Webmin, you can configure DNS, Samba, NFS, remote file systems, and local file systems, and more using your web browser. Okay, after installation, enter this into your browser and log in as root with your root password. Okay, so that gives you a little description of what's going on with the software that we just installed. Okay, so that's the Q option and the QI option. Okay, now let's actually remove this. All right, so we haven't even used it really, but I just want to show you again how to use RPM, and we'll go back and we'll reinstall it again later. Okay, so RPM -E, and again we just say Webmin. Now here what's going to happen is it's going to go through and delete everything that had to do with Webmin. the installation, the actual programs, the scripts that it needed, and so on. Okay, so here it's running some uninstall scripts, and then it will go ahead and just delete webmin from the system. And if we go ahead and then typed, opened up the browser and put the right address into that browser, it's not going to run anymore because it's not going to be installed in our system. Okay, let me just pause the video while this is uninstalling. Okay, so that's it. It ran the uninstall scripts. There it is. Now it's gone. Now, one thing that's still left, if I do an ls in the temp directory, you can see here that the actual file is still here. So what, right? That doesn't matter. I can remove that file as well if I wanted to just delete everything altogether. It says remove this file, yes. And now if I do an ls, the webmin file is gone. Okay, so that was an installation. We learned how to query about the particular package, and then we also deleted the package from the system. Now what I want to do is go back and do the installation again, but this time I want to do it from source code. Okay, so again, we're going to open up a web browser. We're going to go back to webmin.com. www.webmin.com, and on Webmin we're going to go back to the downloading and installing link. But this time, we're going to pick the source RPM file. So now, again, we're going to pick a place that's close by. This time, let's pick Phoenix. Okay, so we're going to pick this one. Again, it's going to bring up a dialog box asking me where I want to save it to, which for some reason it's not doing. Okay, here we go. There we go. Now, okay, now it's saying you're using this other mirror site. Save this file to disk, yes. Put it in the temp directory again, and this time it's called the exact same thing, webmin 1.110-1, but now it's called source.rpm. So I'm going to save that. Okay, and then you can see here it's going to take a couple minutes to save that. What I'm going to do is just close or just pause the video so you don't have to sit here and watch the clock tick down with me. Okay, so now you can see it's 100% complete. I'm just going to close the window, minimize the web browser. We're back in the temp directory. We're doing an ls, and there is the source RPM file that we're going to now install. Okay, so let's use the RPM build command on this source RPM file. So what we do is we use the command, like I said, is called RPM build. We use the -- rebuild option on our source RPM file. So I'm going to hit enter, and now a bunch of stuff's going to scroll down the screen, and basically what's happening is the RPM build command is building the executable version of webmin for us. And what it's going to do is it's going to create another RPM file, but it's going to be like the executable sort of RPM file, like the one that we downloaded 5 minutes ago that said noarc.rpm. And then what we're going to do is it's going to put that in a particular directory. I'll show you where that directory is, and it will actually be printed out in all of this stuff that's scrolling by here on the screen. And then we'll go to that directory and then use the RPM with the -i flag to actually install that binary version of the RPM. So two things are happening here, right? One of the things that's happening is we've taken source code and we're going to turn it into an executable. But as the intermediate step, we're actually creating this RPM file with the binaries inside of it, right? So if you were a developer, for instance, and you wanted to create an RPM for other people to use, this is how you would do it. You would create this, you would have the source code, and then you would use RPM build to actually create that. Okay, so you can see up here, let's see, where is it exactly? So it says right here, it wrote user source Red Hat RPMS noarc webmin 1.11 noarc.rpm. That's exactly the same file like we downloaded 5 minutes ago off the internet directly. But this time we downloaded the source file, we used RPM build to create this, and now, like I said, what we're going to do is use RPM with the -i option, and let's put VH on there again just so it's just like before, and we're going to say, I have to CD to the right directory though. CD user Red Hat, or user source Red Hat RPMS noarc. Okay, let's go in there, and now we're going to use the RPM -i, put the VH option on there, webmin 1.1 noarc.rpm. Okay, so now we're going to do that, and this is exactly like what we did before. Okay, the exact same command and the exact same results are going to happen for it. Okay, so you might be asking yourself, why would I ever do get the source RPM when I can just get the binary directly and install it on my system? And basically you're right. You would never really do that if your only interest is in running the software. If there's a binary version out there that's going to run on your particular platform, then go ahead and just grab the executable version or that binary version and install that. But there's two reasons why you might want the source RPM file. One reason is if your architecture does not have a binary already compiled for it, and if it's a standard architecture like an Intel 586 processor or something like that, it's probably going to have the binary version already compiled. Somebody's probably already done that, and it's out there on the internet somewhere. The other reason you might want to grab the source RPM is if you're a developer yourself and you want to make some changes to the actual software. Okay, so when we talk about open source software, this is what we're talking about, right? Here is a program, it's open source software, we can go there, get the actual source code, and make modifications to the source code, then come back and compile it, and in some sense we have our own customized version of Webmin, for instance. Okay, and that's the other reason that you would grab the source code. But probably the more common reason for people is that their architecture is not listed here, and so they would just grab the source code so that they could actually get this running on their computer because there wasn't a binary out there for it. So you can see here now we've done the same command that we did last time, and now we can log into this using the HTTP interface. So here's what we're going to do is we're going to bring up a Mozilla window, type http://nugget:10,000, and there we are. We can log in as root, and we're back to having a working version of Webmin. This time we compiled it from source. So let's just look at history 5 here, just to see the last 5 commands. So we did the RPM build command on the source RPM. We changed directory to that particular directory that it wrote to, and then we did the regular old RPM with the install option -I flag on that particular RPM file that it created, and that was it. Alright, so that's how you build an RPM, or how you build a binary from a source RPM file. Now let's take a look at the graphical user interface version of the Red Hat Package Manager. And this is another one of these Red Hat config commands. This one's Red Hat config packages. Now if you did a graphical installation of Red Hat Linux, you've seen this screen before. This is the exact same screen that you chose when you installed Red Hat Linux to add or remove packages from your system. Okay, and basically it's broken down into categories: desktops, applications, servers, development tools, and then system tools. Okay, and if there's something in here that you want, what you can do is say kernel development tools. I'm going to check that. I can look at details about this, talk about what extra packages are installed, what the standard packages are that come with the kernel development tools, and then okay, so this is something that I want, say. Then once I've checked that box, a new box came down here that says update. So I'm going to click on update, and now it's going to prepare my system for installation. I'm going to say continue, do the installation, and now it's going to actually install this stuff on my computer. Okay, so so the other thing that it needs is, because of the packages that I'm doing here, I'm adding and removing these basic packages in the package manager, it's grabbing those off of my installation CD. So now I have to dig out disk 2 off my cluttered desk here and stick that in, and then I'm going to come back and click OK. Give me a pause here until I find this disk. Alright, so now we're back. Disk 2 is installed. I'm going to click OK, and now it's going to go off and read off of disk 2 the packages that it needed to, for kernel development. Okay, so again, I'm going to hit pause while this is updating the system. It's basically just going to be a bunch of these sort of screens telling me what packages are being updated. Okay, now you can see the system update was successfully completed, and I'm going to click OK. Now let's talk about what this is doing versus what the RPM command allows you to do. All that this graphical interface allows you to do is add or remove packages that were part of the, that were given to you on the CD itself. Okay, so if you want to add or remove packages from the CD, then you can do this, and there's a whole bunch of packages here that you can add or remove, but you can't go out and just get like webmin. Webmin wasn't one of these packages, and it doesn't give you the ability to add or remove the webmin package from your system. So the RPM command itself is more comprehensive. It allows you to do more different things, and this though is a lot easier. So if you're dealing with a package that came on the CD and you want to add or remove that package, all it takes is a click of one of the boxes and then a click of update or a click of a remove or something like that, and then that's it. Okay, so while this is easier, this graphical user interface, it's not quite as fully functional as the actual RPM command itself, and they promise to put more functionality in the graphical user interface for package management in the future, but for right now, it's a limited tool. Now let's talk about keeping your system up to date for the various modifications, bug fixes, and stuff like that Red Hat has done. Okay, so there's two basic ways to do this. One is from the command line, one is over the using a web browser, but they're both doing the same thing. This is called the Red Hat Network, and what we're going to do first is go on there by the HTTP interface. So I've got a bookmark here for the Red Hat Network. So the address of this is rhn.redhat.com, and you'll see that pop up here in a second. There we go. And then you sign up for this, and then you have a username and a password, and I'm going to log in here. And now what's going to happen is basically what you do when you first log in, you give them information about your system, the type of hardware and such that are in here, the name of your system. I've just called it my RH8 home system. And then there's a list of errata, that things like bug fixes, security patches, stuff like that need to be updated to my system. So you can see here things that have the little lock and key there. Those are security enhancements. The little bugs are bug fixes. And a lot of times these are just really obscure bugs that you'll never even run into, but it's good to keep up to date just in case some of these things creep up. Okay, and you can also see over here there's a green lightning bolt that shows up here sometimes, and those are for enhancements. Okay, so what you can do here is you can go through and select various things, updates to be done to your system, and then say update my system, and it will schedule an update to your system at some time in the future, usually a couple hours in advance, a couple hours in the future, then they'll start updating your system. Okay, and you can go to the schedule tab here and look at the various things that are scheduled to be done to your system and when likely that they're going to be done. Okay, so you can see it gives you an earliest time and so on that they could be done, and these are pending actions to the system. Okay, so this is one way to deal with keeping your system up to date. All right, you go to the RHN webpage, the Red Hat Network webpage, you sign in, you look at the errata, the various things that have gone on since the last time you've been there, and then you go ahead and select the things that you'd like to update on your system. Okay, so that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is with the command called update. The first time you run this command, you should do update-config to configure it so that you can do update exactly what you want to update. So I have to type in the root password to do this, and then it's going to bring up a menu here, a dialog box, where what we're going to do is select how we want to configure the Red Hat Network stuff. Okay, so it's doing that. Whether you do it from the command line with the update command, or you go over the network to the rhn.redhat.com website, it's basically doing the same thing. So if you go to like retrieval installation here, it gives you some options of things that you can do. You can say you can check this, and then it won't install packages after it retrieves them. Okay, it'll just retrieve them and let you install them later. I've checked this one. It says do not upgrade packages when local configuration file's been modified. Okay, I don't want those to be updated. Retrieve source RPM along with the binary package. So the default is not to do that. If you check that, then you will retrieve the source as well as the binary package. Okay, using GPG to verify package integrity. That just has to do with like having a checksum basically to make sure that the package you're getting is the one that Red Hat made for you to get, and it's not some malicious person putting something on the website that you're getting and you're going to put on your system, and it's going to be some kind of kind of a virus or something. Package installation options. After installation, do you want to keep the packages on binary packages on disk? Do you want to enable RPM rollbacks, that sort of thing? Under package exceptions, you can list things in here that you would like to not be updated when you say update my system. And the only thing I've put in here is kernel star, which says anything that has to do with the kernel, do not update it on my system automatically. I'll take care of those by hand later on. Okay, so and in a few videos down the road, what we're going to do is we're going to do kernel recompilation and talk about that. And one of the things we'll talk about is how to update your kernel so that it's the most current kernel. Okay, so I'm just going to cancel out of here, and then once you've configured up-to-date, then you can run the up-to-date program by just typing up-to-date, and now it's going to bring us into the Red Hat Network up-to-date agent. Sorry, this gets cut off a little at the bottom. It's just a screen size issue. So I'm just going to click forward here and say, okay, show me what's up. This is my channel, or the system that I have that I want to update, and now it's going to go through and tell me the various things that it needs to update. Okay, so here are the two things that it needs to update. It has to do with the kernel stuff. Okay, so again, I'm going to skip this. I'm not going to do this now. And it says, notice down here, it says, according to your preferences, you've chosen not to automatically update the above packages. If you'd like to override your settings, then go ahead and check them and click forward, and then it'll go on and do that installation. I don't want to update these at the time, so I'm just going to go back now and cancel. Okay, but these two commands, up-to-date config and up-to-date, basically do the same thing as the Red Hat Network HTTP interface does, but it just does it from the command line. Okay, so the same thing, the Red Hat Network here is at work, keeping your system up to date. And this is a nice feature because sometimes it's hard to keep track of all the various bug fixes and security flaws that they found. And no matter how obscure they are, especially if you're running a production system, you should keep your system up to date so that it's as secure as it can possibly be. All right, well, it's time to wrap up our nugget on Red Hat Package Management. We started by talking about the RPM command, the Red Hat Package Manager, and we learned the various options for RPM, like the -I option for installing, the -E option for erasing a package, Q, you could query a package, find out what files are in it, that sort of thing. And then we looked at the GUI interface, Red Hat config packages, and we saw that this was not quite as fully functioning as the actual RPM command line command, but what it did do, it made very easy to do. So if there is some package that you want to add or remove that is in this list of packages that this GUI provides, then by all means use it, because it makes that very simple to do. And finally, we talked about the Red Hat Network, which is a tool to help you keep your software up to date on your system. We learned about the up-to-date command and the up-to-date config command so that you can configure your system so that the software that you want to have updated automatically is updated automatically. And it's important if you have a production system to stay on top of the errata, the errors that have been discovered and the bugs that have been discovered in Red Hat Linux so that you're up to date and you're one step ahead of the people that are trying to crack into your system. All right, well, I hope you found this nugget informative, and thanks for watching.